Sharks in the pool, that is not cool. I need the tools, take me to school. Feet first into this league, me first, that cannot be. Under the underdog, Monica G. Feeling a whole lot better suddenly. I get in with it, winning again. You're 1 and 2 in the bag, and I'm going for 3. That is the beat down. God of the best, so I keep. Now, y'all treading water for weeks. Now I'm the shark, so I eat. Now, look, I am not sorry. I understood the pump from which I started. And navigating these drafts is cathartic. So, thanks for the invite to party, yeah. Dynasty underdog bite down. Up at the day and the night. Now, easy as flying a kite. Now, come take a look at it right now. Dynasty underdog bite down. Up at the day and the night. Now, easy as flying a kite. Now, come take a look at it right now.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 163, Dynasty Underdog. I'm your host, Uriah Dawkins, joined by tonight, Billy Beeman. What's up, man?
Not much. Technical difficulties and all. We're still here. We're rolling. It's no problem.
Yeah, if I sound a little funny tonight, it's because I had to use my phone to do this, so we must go on. The show must go on, so here we are.
Listen, it's 2023, bro. You should be able to use your phone to make a full-length feature film.
That's true. It just the microphone definitely is not nearly as nice as what I have, so we'll see. But
you sound all right. No worries. We'll get through it.
Well, let's hop into it. Let's get through the bad news first. So, Saquon Barkley. Yeah, 2 weeks in a row. This is terrible. Saquon Barkley injured. Reports are it could be a couple weeks. We're not really sure. It looked pretty bad because he couldn't even put any weight on it, but he's going to be out for a little while.
I mean, this is probably the best of the bunch here that we're going to talk about, to be honest with you, in terms of length of time missed. Yeah, I mean, it looked pretty bad. It could have been a torn ACL, so he probably got out of there lucky the way he was bent back. So, yeah, I mean, if we're lucky here, he misses 3 or 4 weeks, and you just be happy with that based on some of the other stuff we're going to talk about here.
Yeah. And, I don't think that just talking about like ads, I don't think Breda is going to be the answer there. So for those who are wondering, I don't think that really matters. Next one's way worse. Oh, go ahead.
No, you're good.
I'll say, well, yeah, next one's way worse. Nick Chubb. Completely, his leg looked like a noodle after it got bent back. It looked so bad. And this sucks for us, like playing Dynasty. It sucks for Cleveland fans, but mostly like football fans. This is pretty bad because I believe probably 98% of you like watching Nick Chubb just run the ball. Like, he's fun to watch. He's a good dude. And so this is sad. This is very sad.
Yeah, you got to feel for Nick Chubb. Hate losing one of the best in the game, but yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. For our purposes, there's some interesting stuff happening behind Nick Chubb in terms of Jerome Ford. He put together a pretty good performance after Nick Chubb went out, scored a touchdown. I'll talk a little bit about some advanced metrics with him, but we're also getting word that Kareem Hunt's visiting, which is not a surprise at all. I put that out on Twitter like immediately. I was like, is there any chance like Kareem Hunt just that they give him a call like, hey, the system, just come over here and help out at the very least. I still think Jerome Ford is leading the backfield here, but obviously he's not going to do it alone. And Pierre Strong is not, a capable enough rusher, I don't think, to kind of rely on him and Jerome Ford alone.
Yeah, Ford did look decent out there.
Yeah, in terms of yards after contact per attempt, Jerome Ford is only second to Christian McCaffrey, and that's with 21, and that's with a limit of 21 minimum rush attempts. So right behind Christian McCaffrey is Jerome Ford, then surprisingly James Cook. Then there was Nick Chubb, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Joe Mixon, Raheem Mostert, Saquon Barkley, DeAndre Swift. So, definitely good company there for sure. But some guys that stick out for sure are Jerome Ford, James Cook, and Tyler Algier. But Jerome Ford, who is being slotted right into a starting role here, seems like he might be able to get the job done. And then in terms of missed tackles Forrest, I believe he's somewhere up there around 12, tied for 12th, it looks like. So, yeah, the guy can play some football.
All right, next one's a little concerning. We actually talked about it last week, the way he was protecting his body, but Anthony Richardson looked pretty good. Was a pretty good game again, which I like to see. I had my doubts about him, but so far I have nothing negative to say, other than he needs to protect his body. So he was out pretty much most of the game with a concussion. That's twice now he's had to leave the game because he isn't protecting his body the best he probably should right now. And I think that is concerning. That's something he's going to have to learn to do, and learn it pretty quickly. Otherwise, he's not going to last very long in the league. He's going to be out of here like Cam. It's concerning.
Yeah.
They got a pretty good backup there. But yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He reminds me a lot of Tua in the way that he doesn't know how to protect his body when he falls. Tua of the past, right? Because we see Tua now, talking about all the jiu-jitsu and all the other stuff that he's doing. It might not be jiu-jitsu, it might be something else, but all the stuff that he's doing to kind of learn how to fall, roll, not slam his head. I mean, the Anthony Richardson injury was him falling onto his back and his head snapping back and hitting the ground. It wasn't actually a player hitting him necessarily in the head. So, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's just one of those things he's going to have to learn. I'm sure they're talking to him about it, every second, all the time. So, yeah, he's a rookie, man, but he looks really good. Like, I would much rather have him than Justin Fields. I've been trying to find a way to move on from Fields to him. This may give you an avenue. It shouldn't, but it may give you an avenue to acquiring him where you couldn't before, just because he's injured and Fields isn't. That, it's a concussion. Shouldn't really do that, but there it is.
Next one, Brandon Ayuk left the game with an injury. He plays early this week, so there's a good chance he might miss a week. But other than that, it's not all that concerning. Just note that he probably won't be available to you this week.
What do you, Brandon Ayuk or Puka Nacua in a second?
Oh man, I'm still not ready to do all that for Puka.
Yeah,
I'll probably keep Ayuk.
Puka in a first, get it there?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, let's go.
Oh boy, it's a crazy time. We're going to talk about some more Puka stuff later on. Okay, David Montgomery with a hammy. It's our last injury here.
Yep, with a hammy or like a bruised thigh or something, what they're calling it. He says a few weeks. His coach says you're day to day, bud. So we'll see who wins this battle. But yeah, David Montgomery not going to be available for you this week either, and maybe not the next week. So we'll see. Something to keep an eye on. Either way, this is probably good for Gibbs, right?
You hope so, right? I mean, I think that's what we have to watch going into week 3. It looked okay David Montgomery went out late in this game, and you kind of were able to see a little bit of kind of what it was going to look like. And not to be concerned or anything, but I just saw way too much Craig Reynolds than I wanted to see. And I think we're going to see more of that going forward than we want to see. That said, I think Gibbs was much more involved in terms of targets. I think he was around 12% target share. I don't have it right up in front of me, but around 7 targets. Now, if we can see that continue going forward, then we're all good. I think we'll be fine. But he's just so explosive. It's bothering me because I think in the first game we saw him get some carries, and almost every one of them was 5+, 10+ yards, and then they're just
yes.
Maybe not. It's I don't quite understand that line of thinking. So I'm hoping that David Montgomery being out gives them some incentive to push him into that role a little bit more.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, I mean, this is 2 weeks now, and we're talking about highly drafted or at least cornerstone pieces at the running back position. Just one of those things about rostering as many of those high value backup running backs as you can to fill out the bottom of your roster. We did a whole thing on that in the offseason where we looked at all the backup running backs all around the league. And it's better to roster them before this happens than to try to go get them afterwards. So,
yeah, I mean, we've been talking a little bit about, we've been talking about, obviously, with the season coming up, how much to spend fab on with all these running back injuries early on and kind of, blowing your wad, and then what to do after that, right? Kind of some of the advice was try to get ahead of it, get ahead of any of these guys who could potentially, fall into some of these roles like a Justice Hill or something like that, right? So real quick here, I pulled up from MFL before we get into some more of the recap from week 2. I just want to talk a little bit about this. I pulled up from MFL running backs who are rostered less than 10%, right? So it's across all leagues. And what I was trying to do here, obviously, some of us are in, shallower leagues, I guess. I'm even in some shallower leagues. If you're in 10-team leagues, there's a lot more available. But I think it's a lot easier when there's a lot more available, right? I'm looking for the leagues where it's like 30 to 35 roster spots, and like you are scraping the waiver wire for those guys. Like Justice Hill is like the last available, right? So I wanted to go really deep and go 10% or under ownership and talk about some of these guys that may stick out to us. I highlighted a couple of them so I can touch on, any of them. Do any of them stick out to you before I get in?
I didn't want to have to mention this, but you didn't give me access to the sheet.
Oh, no. That's stupid.
Yeah, I didn't want to put you on blast, on the pod.
No.
But,
Wow, but he did it. He did it. He did
it's
it
okay.
to me.
I had to.
All right.
I had to. You really left me no choice.
Man, wow, I didn't. Okay, so we're going to do this. Okay. Check that link. This is what you get with the live show, fam. All right.
But hey, I'm in. Sort of.
Hey,
yep,
yo.
I'm in. All right.
AJ Heretic gives them incentive. I love it. I love the pun. Well done.
That is Gibbs. That is good. Our listeners. So good.
Dude,
he's got to be a
they're
dad.
Great.
No.
Yeah, they're great. Gotta hop in the Discord. They're so good. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I gave Uriah access to the sheet. We're talking about running backs who are rostered 10% or less in your Dynasty league. Trying to pick out some guys here who potentially could leap into a role, injury due to injury. Essentially, that's really what it is. I mean, these are like the back end handcuffs, and I'm trying to pull something out of Uriah here after I didn't give him any access. So,
it's all good. To any of these, man, this is bottom of the barrel, but that's okay.
Specific reason here. Come on.
It's okay. It's okay. It's because they're not good. No. Kenny McIntosh, Seattle. I know they like him there. They like him a lot on special teams. He had a pretty good offseason, pretty good camp. I know I listened to the other players and stuff because I live in Seattle, and they do talk about Kenny McIntosh and how he was in school with quite a few of the other guys who were drafted recently. So he's a guy that I know that the team likes. He's actually on a team, and the players like him too. So I think Kenny McIntosh is one of those guys that, like, hey, you never know, just in case. He's pretty down low in the pecking order when it comes to Charbonnet and Penny and all, or not Penny, but Walker. Mm-hmm. But he is a guy that, like, come week 6, he might be one of these, 30% fab type guys you got to go out and try to get. Who else? Darrell Henderson's kind of interesting only because he's kind of been making the rounds, and it seems like teams are a little bit interested in. Also, Mike Boone. Mike Boone has actually got some work in Houston. More work than probably we would want him to get. And then obviously you mentioned Craig Reynolds, just because we did get to see him get a little bit of work there after Montgomery was gone. What do you see?
I mean, dude, Mike Boone being a high priority waiver ad in 2023 would be absolutely hilarious. Like, throw me right back to 2020. This is like weird. It's a yearly event for Mike Boone. It really is. But I do like that shout because, Devin Singletary goes down, or more importantly, I think we saw kind of Pierce get banged up this past weekend. I think he's okay, but I think we saw him get banged up. If that happens, you're going to see a lot more Mike Boone, obviously, because they're not just going to run Devin Singletary. They see him, in a more specific role. Excuse me. But from this list, there was some guys definitely that stood out to me, like Malik Davis. I think if Tony Pollard were to go down, they probably bring Malik Davis back. I imagine he's on their practice squad right now, but I imagine they bring him up and utilize him more than people expect. So I'm looking for guys like that. Maybe a Ty Montgomery who might still be out there. Zeke hasn't looked good. Zeke has not looked good. He just hasn't. He's been absurdly inefficient, and both in the passing game and the running game. So I think they probably want to get Ty Montgomery a little more involved while he's healthy, however long that lasts. I like Keaton Mitchell. I'm kind of surprised Keaton Mitchell's still on the waivers and still like 4% owned. Baltimore running back who is on IR, but look, Gus Edwards can go down at any time. Justice Hill goes down at any time, and then we're going to see a lot more Keaton Mitchell. I don't love him, but he's a really, really explosive athlete. So Craig Reynolds still out there. Obviously, he's going to be a waiver wire ad this weekend. One more that popped up that's probably going to start getting added for sure, but I don't know if everybody heard about it. Zonovan Knight. I think he took a visit with the Browns potentially, and I think he signed with the Browns. I think that's what happened. So I can look that up. I know I heard it, but yeah, those are the kind of guys I'm looking for who could be thrust into a position. Like right now, 2 weeks ago, you didn't think Justice Hill was going to be a waiver wire ad. Right now, you don't think any of these guys are going to be waiver wire ads, and that's the kind of player that I think we need to look at to get ahead of not being able to spend the fab we don't have anymore on, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, that's a good topic too, because
Bam Knight went to the Lions, which is actually more interesting, to be honest. But anyway, yeah.
But it's good because we talk about, both of us kind of have the same philosophy when it comes to spending the fab early on. And if we did that last week, we might be a little loose. Our wallets might be a little empty right now and might be able to miss out on getting a Jerome Ford. But we never did really talk about, like, what do you do once your fab is spent? And this is exactly what you need to do, is go out there and you probably have at least one roster spot somewhere. Go and try to add one of these guys. I know a lot of people do that, like Sunday night games or Monday night games. They have like a spot open and they just drop a guy and pick up the backup running back just in case the starter does get hurt. So this is kind of like that, but just a little more proactive. And I think this is the best way to go about it once you're a little broke.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome.
So yeah, this is what we're gonna do. I think weekly, just because it's good. We'll recap basically of everything that went down that stood out to us. So we like to call it "What did we learn" and what stood out. And so this is the second week. What stood out to me is Jordan Love's doing pretty good. Another 3-touchdown game. He's protecting the ball. Like he's not like making these throws or these plays where you're just like, oh my God, Jordan Love's like amazing, but like he's one of the top 20 quarterbacks in the league, if you ask me, just as being able to run that offense and do what he's doing. His teammate Jaden Reed is balling out too. Maybe it's because Christian Watson was hurt or whatever and didn't get to play. But Jaden Reed has like a 25% target share. I'll take that all day. And that's not even a dude I really like. Like I didn't like him in the model. I didn't really like his metrics. Not a lot about him did I really enjoy. But when you look at a 25% target share from a rookie, you gotta notice it, and I've been noticing it.
And he's maintaining a 2.24 yards per route run, which is for the rookies, he's top 6 above Jordan Addison. So yeah, he's balling right now, and kind of quietly too, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, there is no like Jaden Reed hype train. You know what I mean? But like he kind of has earned a small hype train, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's fair. So on the Jordan Reed note, I mean, first of all, I must have closed out of the other one I just had here. But okay, so I was looking at Jordan Reed and kind of the advanced metrics because like he doesn't look that good to me when I watch him. Like I know the stats at the end of the day look good and he's throwing touchdowns. So
Jordan Love.
Sorry, I said Jordan Reed.
Yeah, it's okay.
Jordan Love. Thank you. That's what you're here for. Help me out.
Yes.
Help me out. We'll get there. Okay. So yeah, Jordan Love. I was looking at some of the advanced metrics on him, a couple different ones, but one of them was expected completion percentage, right? Because his
Yep.
completion percentage has been absolute dog shit. Like, let's be clear about that. It has been. And he and Justin Fields are the two by far lowest in expected completion percentage differential. Like they're like negative like 10 or below in terms of that metric. And that's like far and away worse than anybody else. I don't think there's many near the double digits like they are. So from that respect, not great. But even if you don't think completion percentage matters that much in terms of like EPA per play, right? And this is an ESPN stat, total expected points added with lower leverage plays, according to the ESPN win probability model downweighted. So from that perspective, where was he? He was low. Got to find him now. He's like 13th. Okay, so he's down pretty low in terms of PAA, which is number of points contributed by the quarterback. It's pretty low as well, down there by Baker. I don't know if it's as good as the stats are showing. I think he might be playing a little above his abilities right now, in terms of what he's putting up on the scoreboard. That's just me from what I see in just some of the peripheral numbers. There's definitely more here I could get into in terms of the passing grades from PFF, but I know not everybody really believes in PFF too much, but he's pretty low in terms of their passing grade, down in the 60s. Not good.
Yeah. Something to keep an eye on.
Yeah,
are we over
definitely.
Justin Fields? Are we over Justin Fields?
We're getting there. We got to be getting there, right? Like it's.
Yeah. I do want to say.
Yeah.
Last year was kind of the same thing. He started off like, I don't know, first 5 weeks or something like that, and wasn't looking great. And then all of a sudden they let him run a little bit and do little things. And I'm not over him yet. I'm gonna give him some time. Hopefully the coaching staff. I think it's probably one of the worst like organizations in the whole entire league. I mean, we know that. Hopefully they figure out the best way to use them like they did last year, and we'll see. I'm still gonna wait and see.
That's probably a level-headed approach to it for sure. I've been kind of ready to move on from Fields. I moved on from Fields last year at pretty low prices, which look pretty damn good now because you couldn't get those deals done today. But yeah, it's more than just him. Like, I think that he's probably at the very least a middle of the road quarterback, but the coaching and the scheme is just so terrible. We saw, them run the same play, the same screenplay backed up to their own end zone 3 times in a row from the same formation. Like, what are we doing? Like, that's terrible. You're putting you're not putting them in any position to succeed. So it goes beyond Fields. Really, it's just hard to trust the organization and Fields. I was just looking at JJ Zachariason put out 2023 target share by position and compared to 2022 in terms of the differential, right? Positive or negative, So we're looking at Chicago here, the wide receiver position, 43% target share to the wide receiver position. That is the second lowest, in the league, only behind Arizona and just above Atlanta, who's at 39%, of course, which is just a whole another issue. But we look at the differential from last year, negative 16%. So they reduced their target share to the wide receiver position, negative 16% after signing DJ Moore. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? That doesn't make sense. So I can't trust this organization. I want out of Fields. I would probably add like at the very, borderline, I'm ready to add a first to him and go get AR, but definitely add a second and see if you can go get Anthony Richardson and start there. Like that, I want to find a way to get out of him and onto something that has a lot longer of a lifespan.
That's fair. All right. Baker Mayfield seems comfortable. this guy looks like he's playing with instead of trying to keep a job, just like maybe he realizes like what his role is going to be going forward in the NFL. He's not lighting it up at all. You were talking about Pro Football Focus grades, and they have him ranked as the third quarterback in their positional grades. He's made old ass Mike Evans look like young ass Mike Evans. I don't know, man. If you somehow still have Baker, like you're not feeling too bad about that, and he just looks like like we talked about, like these are probably the two best wide receivers he's had to throw to. Maybe one of the organizations he's actually had to play for, and he looks, like I said, comfortable. He looks comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on the Mike Evans note, definitely seems like I may have sold a little too soon. In terms of the production here, it seems like right now would be an opportune time to get out if you're not, locked in contender, right? Like he had a really big run the other day, and he looked older. Like he looked.
He is.
He looked like he was lumbering. I'm just saying, like, you could easily see one of those, and all of a sudden he pulls up and has a hamstring injury, and he's on IR like Deontay Johnson. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I'm willing to admit I was wrong, sold a little early, whatever. I don't think I got out too low. I think, I got him for what was an equivalent at the very least of a second round pick in 2024. You could probably push for a late first, but that's pushing, and it's going to be a contender. So it is going to be a late first. But yeah, I was definitely wrong on this offense in general. They look a lot better with Baker there than I thought they would. Rachaad White had a good stat line this week. Still did not look good in my opinion. He got a lot of work.
No. Yep.
He got a lot of work. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. Watching him was not. Yeah. He doesn't look good. Just saying.
Watching him hurt my eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Next one, Tutu Atwell, Puka Nacua. I mean, 1 week's a fluke, 2 weeks a thing. Like, they're gonna be a thing until Cup is back, and once Cup is back, then we could talk about what the hell we think's gonna happen then. But they're both just balling out, and that's all we can really say about it. Like, they're both gonna be a thing. Yes, the Studley wide receiver duo of Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua. Probably the two coolest names, though, in the NFL. You got to think about it.
Definitely solid names. I do agree with that. Yeah. I think we're understating it a little bit, right? Like, Puka Nacua had a historic start to his career. Historic.
Yeah,
no wide receiver ever has done what he has done. There was a bunch of analysts, I'm sure, had it readied up, but we were talking about it in the Discord. And I could see it coming. I was like, I don't think any receiver, because I looked up the other week what he did in game one, and there were so few players who did that. Anquan Bolden, I remember that game. And then to do it 2 weeks in a row, I was like, I don't think anybody's done this. And so, yeah, to put together 2 games with 10 plus targets and 100 plus 10 plus receptions and 100 plus yards is something no wide receiver's ever done before. Very impressive. We'll talk a little bit later in the Dynasty trade area about, some trade value for him, what we're thinking about, selling. Nothing, never sell him ever. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit about price and what we should do. But I do think that I said this before, I think he is the locked in wide receiver 2 for this team when Cooper Kupp comes back. I think Tutu Atwell probably edges out Van Jefferson in terms of the field stretching role, the third wide receiver role, but they can effectively move Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua around in the same spots that, that each other play in. So they could just flip them around the entire game in different formations and have them run, different routes. And it could be a pretty incredible offense, I think, when it's all said and done. I mean, Matt Stafford looks really good. He's healthy. So, Kyron Williams, they're getting rid of Akers. I mean, it's a whole new show over there in LA for the Rams. So I like what I see out of Puka.
All right. Yeah, me too. Next one is just something to touch on with Houston. Houston is largely seen as being a bad team, which, they're not a good team, but we talk about how bad teams could still produce good fantasy players. And you're seeing that with Houston right now. They're playing at a pretty high pace. The rookie quarterback is doing fine, but he's making guys like Nico Collins and Robert Woods, fantasy viable. So it's just something to keep an eye on, and something to like think about going forward when your drafts. Like, yeah, you want to draft players from the quote unquote good offenses, but like there's always going to be value with these guys that nobody wants because the NFL team is going to be bad. But for us playing fantasy, there's still going to be good fantasy players on bad NFL teams. So it's just something to kind of think about.
Yeah, and don't sleep on Tank Dell. Yep, there he is. Hey,
And Tank Dell. Yes, Tank Dell
don't
too.
Forget Tank Dell. Yes, he had I think 6 catches, he had a touchdown, but I think 7 or 8, 9 targets. Something. He had a pretty good day. He was getting a lot of opportunity there, and he's not low on the yards per hour list either. 1.51, top 10 for the rookies here. So it's looking good. I like it.
Next one we don't have to talk about too much, but I just want to say because that's my boy, Sky Moore can play ball. He had a pretty good week this last week. Maybe having Kelsey back and taking some cat is just
the cat's
crazy.
Got something to say about it.
Jesus.
Bro. The cat
maybe
said Sky Moore is my guy.
Yeah, she knows. She's probably hungry. I just fed her. But yeah, Sky Moore. It was nice to see him out there do that. Kadarius Toney actually caught a ball, believe it or not. Maybe having Kelsey out there helped. Maybe open up some things for Sky Moore. But he was out there and he made a day of himself out there. Got me like 18 points on my bench.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still a little concerned about Sky Moore. I'm not sure what the hell that game was from Jacksonville. I mean, every single player on that team looked terrible. Offense, defense, they couldn't really get it together. So, yeah, it was a struggle just to watch that game, to be honest with you, from both sides. But yeah, Sky Moore can play. We know this. I'm just, I think I need to see. I'm not. Consistency isn't everything, but with a guy like Sky Moore, I kind of need to see it more consistently because I don't think that he's a big play, every week kind of guy. So I just got to see it a little bit more with him.
That is fair. Zach Moss, RB1, like sure as hell looked like it this week. He comes in there after being on IR or just out last week, week 1. He comes back in and he plays 55 of 56 snaps, 18 of 18 running back carries. Absolute workhorse role there. I'm not a Zach Moss guy, but I'm starting him next week.
Sure. All I was thinking the whole time was if Evan Hull was here, if only Evan Hull was here, I would love to see what he would do with some of this opportunity. So it's a little frustrating from that perspective with Hull and IR. But yeah, what are you going to say about the volume king, Zach Moss? Absolutely. Yeah, he. Yeah, what can you say about it? Great waiver wire pickup last week. I'm sure he was on a ton of waivers, and those are the kind of guys you got to get ahead of and see kind of the forest for the trees, right? Like these guys have potential. Some of them have potential. They're there. It's like the Justice Hills, like all that stuff. We should have seen that coming, and you got to kind of press yourself to find those opportunities. And Zach Moss is prime example of that.
All right, kind of one of the last things that stood out to me and what I learned was the Bills' backfield. It's a complete shit show. I don't want anything to do with any of them. Well, that's not entirely true. I think I'll still probably flex James Cook from time to time. But, man, when Latavius Murray's, like, snaking, goal line carries and touchdowns and stuff like that, like, there's a problem in that backfield room. What are your thoughts on the Bills' backfield?
Yeah, I'm actually not surprised Latavius Murray is getting those touches. It's more concerning for Damian Harris than anybody. I mean, he ended up, I think, with a touchdown on like 33 yards, 7 touches, 33 yards. Like, yeah, that's going to happen from time to time, but more often than not, it's probably not going to happen. And I would bet that Latavius Murray gets it and not him. That's just, I don't know. That just seems to kind of be how history goes with teams that acquire Latavius Murray. They use him on the goal line and they use him there effectively. The Bills can do that. James Cook's the back to have. It's a mess. I don't love it. But looking at those advanced metrics from PFF, looking at the yards after contact per attempt for James Cook, I mean, that's something I didn't quite expect to see. And in that offense, he can be kind of dangerous. So he's probably more valuable than we gave him credit for. I mean, it was funny coming in like the rookie evaluation process. I think we liked him more, at least I did, than consensus. But once he got into the league and he hit the Bills, it was the whole like CEH effect where it's like, he's on the Bills. Obviously, he's the best running back ever. And it's like, the truth is somewhere in between. The truth is somewhere in between.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. What do you got here?
Yeah. A couple of things that stuck out to me. I mean, Josh Dobbs, like kind of, I mean, is it the Giants or just that bad? He kind of looked legit the other day. I was talking a lot of shit about him. I'm not going to lie. I was talking a lot of trash about how, like, this offense will look terrible with Josh Dobbs, but he was pretty effective, and all these pass catchers were fantasy viable. So,
yeah,
like, do you think we can trust this going forward, or do you think that was just like the Giants effect?
You could probably trust it going forward. I mean, I don't think he looked like great, but he's driving that bus a lot better than I thought. I mean, he's got a couple targets to my boy, Trey McBride, so I love him for that. If
Sure.
you know, like say Aaron Rodgers was like your quarterback 2, and you lost him week 1, and you ended up with Josh Dobbs as the guy. Like, yeah, you could put him in your super flex, and I think he's going to be fine. But I mean, long term, like Josh Dobbs isn't the answer.
Yeah, it's just more like I guess like I'm like thinking I guess I can start Marquise Brown maybe against like against defenses who aren't like top half of the league. Like you could probably start some of these pass catchers in those spots.
I think we could feel more comfortable about that now.
Yeah, I didn't think that was going to be possible. So that's just a takeaway. Watching that game, I was a little impressed by what Josh Dobbs could do. Bottom line, like the fact that he could even successfully run an offense, like I was pretty surprised by that. So good on him. I don't know if anybody caught the Monday night games or it was 2 of them, but I thought that with Deontay Johnson out, I was wondering kind of what the Pickett connection would look like, and you got to be kind of encouraged by it. For me, 71-yard touchdown, not much. I mean, I think he finished the game with 127 yards, right? So he added a decent bit to his, big play, but this is more of an opportunity, I think, to get out. Again, giving you an opportunity to get out of him. I'm shooting for the moon. I'm shooting for, mid 2024 first, something like that, plus package, one of these other, rookies plus a pick, plus a second, something like that. If you can move over to who's on this list that's not getting all the love. I mean, I do wonder if Jaden Reed plus like a first or something, if you could manage something like that, or plus a second, or some decent package that would work. Something like that I would love to see if I can swing, because I'm not the biggest believer long term. He's clearly being buoyed by Deontay Johnson being out.
Yeah, of course.
Also, Najee Harris, yikes. Like, what
jeez,
hell? Yeah. That's bad.
Doesn't look good, man. He just doesn't look good. I thought he was I do think he's a good running back. I thought he was a good running back coming in, but I didn't expect him to look so used already. Like, I mean, was that 1 year of like just ton of work really take that toll on him? Is it the play calling? I have no idea what it is, but I'm glad I have 0 Najee.
Yeah.
And I'm sad I don't have any Jalen Warren.
Yeah, I hear that too, but I wonder. I don't have any Najee. I just wonder if I had a Najee, like what. I mean, I just feel like at this point you just got to ride the ship. Like you just got to ride the sinking ship.
You do.
And if by some miracle somebody comes and rescues you, down the line, you take that lifeboat, you take that, you take it and you jump.
Hop in the skip.
Yeah. When somebody gives you an opportunity to get out. But right now it just seems like better days have to be ahead at some point for him than what we're seeing right now.
Golly.
Yeah. It's like the what was the Russell Wilson thing? Like, it's got to be better than this, right? We just wait. It's got to get better.
It has to.
All right. Yeah. And it did. All right. What do we do with Raheem Mostert, right? Old guy, but he's putting up numbers. He just had an 18 carry, 121 yard, 2 touchdown day, monster fantasy day. Are we selling off this? Is it just like move no matter what? Or I don't know. What do we do?
It's hard to sell guys like that. It depends on your roster, right? Say you had Saquon and Chubb and Montgomery and Dobbins, and now you don't have anybody, and you're not going anywhere. And Mostert was on your roster. Maybe you could, sell him off. If you're contending, this is a guy you could probably go out and get pretty cheap. But most people only people probably looking to go ahead and acquire him are people who are firmly in that contention right now. If you are not, you are selling him today. He's old. He's going to get hurt probably. He doesn't have a lot of years left in him. It just is what it is. Like, he's what, 30, 31? He's old. If you have him, like, you're happy. If you have him and you're contending, you're just starting him every week, and that is what it is.
Would you take a second round pick straight up if you weren't contending?
Yeah.
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 That makes sense. Yeah. I bought him last year for a third round pick on a team that I'm contending again with this year. And yeah, so I think that's great turnaround. If you could turn that into a second, if you're not contending any longer, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. You're not selling them for a second in June, last June, or the next one.
Yeah. No June ever. Never
no June at all. His Junes are behind him. This is the time. Yeah.
His value is between August.
That's it, man. Until he gets hurt or whatever.
Yeah, August and December maybe. Like, you're lucky. If you're lucky.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to point out from that game, the Patriots were clearly trying not to lose, not trying to win, but not that matters. Like, the most disappointing part of that game for anybody should be Demario Douglas going in there, looking absolutely amazing, having Bradley Chubb, an elite defender, come behind, karate chop the ball out of his hands, and Belichick go, rookie, sit on the bench the rest of the day. No, bro, no. Right now, Demario Douglas is sitting at 8th on the list of rookies in terms of yards per out run at 1.90, right behind Jordan Addison. Give this man more opportunity. We need to see him more. I expect to see him more on the field. We should have seen him a lot more in this Miami game, but they absolutely did him dirty. And I think we're going to see, better days ahead for him. So keep an eye out for Demario Douglas, slot receiver for the Patriots, probably on a lot of your waiver wires. So, just keep him in your thoughts and prayers and hope that Belichick doesn't. Well, dude, Belichick could absolutely just nuke you an entire season because you fumbled the ball one time. It's just like,
everybody always blamed that on Tom Brady.
I mean, I think both of them were like that. I think he adopted that mindset from Belichick. I do. I think it was like, no mistakes. I don't make mistakes. No mistakes. Like, you don't make mistakes.
Get on the bench.
Yeah. No, it's BS. It's not the way to teach players, in my opinion. I mean, they did this to Ramondre Stevenson his rookie year, and I mean, I don't know if it helped him or not, but Ramondre was the player he was before that fumble, and he was the player he was after that fumble, and that's Demario Douglas too. I think it only gives him more confidence getting him back in there. So that was disappointing to see, but like I said, high hopes for him. I think he's a good player, so keep an eye out. All right, buy or sell Marvin Mims. We just saw Marvin Mims have an absolutely monster weekend, right? He had 2 catches, like 100+ yards, and a touchdown from Russell Wilson. Finally, it came to fruition what we've been talking about, the Marvin Mims deep ball, the Marvin Mims big playability. What are you thinking with this, big game? It was on a limited target share, limited opportunity. Do you think you just kind of try to sell off of this, or do you want to hold and see if his role can increase?
If you have him, hold him. It's hard to trust Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, given their injury history and all that there. This is what you want to see from a guy like Marvin Mims, right? If you have him, you draft him in your rookie draft. Like, this is kind of what you're hoping for, even though it's like limited route participation when he was out there. I mean, you saw what he did. I mean, he was out there and he scored you a lot of points on limited opportunity. If he gets even more, like, this is a good thing. If you have Marvin Mims, you want to keep him, unless you're like really tearing up to a more top tier receiver, a little more established receiver. But if I have Mims, I'm just happy I have him.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think he also had a pretty big punt return in that game as well, if I'm not mistaken. I do think he did have a big special teams play as well. So, guy's a playmaker. I do tend to agree with Uriah talking about yards per out run in terms of this rookie class, right? Okay, so we were talking about, Demario Douglas 1.9, Jordan Addison 1.99, Jaden Reed we talked about 2.24. Let's talk about the guy who leads all rookies in yards per out run. 7.63 yards per out run. He edges out the next guy by 4 points, which is Jalen Hyatt at 3.07. He has the fewest routes run in the top 15, top 14 players on this list with 16 routes run, but still, Rashee Rice has 18 routes run, 2.72 yards per out run. I don't care. Marvin Mims is balling.
Yes.
Bottom line.
I think you're just happy you have him, and you just hope that the amount of routes that he does run increases. So that 7 point whatever is going to come down, but I mean, that's pretty insane after 2 weeks for a rookie. So we don't see that a lot.
Yep. Okay, so what do we think about Brian Robinson for the Washington Commanders, their running back? We've seen some interesting usage out of him. People are, I think, getting a little excited about what they're seeing. We saw 19 carries game 1 for 59, no touchdowns. He ended up catching 1 of 2 receptions and a touchdown, which really saved his fantasy day. And then we saw in game 2, 18 for 87 and 2 touchdowns. Had a pretty big game there, obviously, with those 2 touchdowns. So are you like a believer? Are you a buyer? Are you a seller? Just off my initial reaction was like, just sell off of this immediately. But some people seem to be excited and intrigued. What do you think?
Yeah, put me with the excited and intrigued crowd. Just because I think the team likes him. He was drafted by he was drafted by the current regime there. Antonio Gibson was not, which we've talked about ever since he was forever, seems like, but he's still around. Brian Robinson would be interesting to see what it would cost to get him. Like, can you take one of these injured running backs and get a Brian Robinson straight up, or just like, is there a world where, say, even though he's not going to play the rest of the season, is there somebody out there that would sell you Brian Robinson for Chubb and maybe a slight piece off of that if they're not contending? Is that something that you would even see happening?
I don't think so, because I was seeing some talk on the Twitter box about, selling Chubb for a 3rd round pick, like just like getting rid of him, like his career's donezo. So, I don't know if that's happening with him specifically. I'm trying to think if there's another way that you could kind of move over to Brian Robinson, but I'm not I don't think I'm part of the excited crowd, like I already kind of hinted to. Somebody sent me an offer of Brian Robinson for my Puka Nacua last week, and I ended up declining. This week it's kind of like a wash in terms of points, but I'm glad I didn't do it. So I don't know if that tells you where I'm at on it, but I think a lot of people would maybe do something like that, trade a Puka Nacua for like a Brian Robinson or maybe Brian Robinson plus a little something. I'm not sure how that would have to go now, but yeah, I guess I'm just concerned because they are using him in the passing game a little bit. Like he had 2 targets and 3 targets in, each of the games respectively, but it's not that much. And if he doesn't score a touchdown at all, he's going to be at 10 total points, from 20 carries. So it's the upside isn't really there. So off a 28-point game, it's I would rather try to move him for future capital. I would try to move him for Puka Nacua. You know what I mean? Something like that on a running back needy team, like somebody tried to do to me. It'd be harder to do today probably, but I don't know. I guess I'm just not in the believer camp, really.
That's fair.
All right. What about, okay. So I was looking for the actual numbers, but I was interested. I heard this somewhere. So Jackson Smith and Jigba obviously hasn't played that much. He's had, I think it was around a 55% snap share compared to 80% for DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, right? But he has the same amount of targets through 2 games as DK and like 3 less than Tyler Lockett. So I don't know if there's any concern about JSN out there, if the managers who roster him currently are going to be kind of worried, hey, he's not getting involved as early as I want. He's not having these boom games like some of these other rookies. I'd look to go and buy JSN. He is earning targets and earning work on limited usage, and that's huge. So, we already saw Tyler Lockett get a little bit banged up. He played the game. He looked great. But, DK Metcalf had a nasty hit to his ribs, came back in. Okay, it's a long season, a lot of big hits. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to have a lot more playing time as the season goes on, regardless of injury or not. But, the injury is always a high concern with these Seattle wide receivers. So I like Jackson Smith-Njigba despite some of the lack of production that we're seeing in the first couple weeks here.
Yeah, I agree with you. If there's anybody that's impatient right now, maybe, see if they're put out some feelers to try to get them. But I think that, probably at least in the Dynasty community, I don't think there's a lot of people right now willing to move off of JSN just quite yet.
I got a good one for you. I bet a good amount of JSN managers would move off of him for George Pickens right now.
You're right.
And I would trade George Pickens in a heartbeat for Jackson Smith-Njigba.
Yeah, I would too. And I bet you could get that done with very little effort. Yeah, great point. Very good point.
All right. I have some homework. I'm going to try to do that with my any DU2 listeners who have Jackson Smith-Njigba, whoever you are, if you're listening, I'm coming at you. All right. With George Pickens. Hit my line. Okay, last one I got here. This one is pretty important, I think, to everybody, but definitely both of us who have been talking a lot about Quentin Johnston. We made some trades. I made some trades. I moved I moved Devonta Adams for Quentin Johnston in a 2nd-round pick. And yeah, I'm totally a little concerned here, man. Like, how can you not be? I'm looking right now at just the team. I'm looking at the team snaps for the I'm looking at the receiving work for the team, and I'm looking at the snaps, the target share, looking at the routes, the run, targets per out run, yards per out run, yada, 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 just for the Chargers, right? And he is last in yards per out run among everybody except for Josh Palmer, which is actually the only thing that you can get excited about. Like, all right, bro, you have Josh Palmer on the field way too much and he's not doing anything. Let Quentin Johnston get out there. That said, yards per out run 1.0 for Quentin Johnston. That's not good. And that's second to last on the team. He's, in terms of targets per out run, 31.3%, which is also second to last on the team. So he's edging out Josh Palmer, but they're still playing Josh Palmer more. I can't really understand why that is. But overall here, just looking at yards per out run for all wide receivers, Quentin Johnston at 0.64 for the rookies. This is per PFF. That's not good. That's not going to cut it. And he hasn't gotten enough work, but more routes than Marvin Mims, 25 to Marvin Mims 16. And he's not even putting up a 1.0 yards per out run per PFF. So I don't know what to do with this. He's running like around 25 to 30% of the snaps. It's just not enough. And I don't know when it's going to change or what's going to change it. Obviously, we're looking for like a Mike Williams injury or something like that. But again, his own teammate, Josh Palmer, isn't even cutting it, and they're not putting him in over Palmer. So I don't understand what's happening here. This may be a coaching thing. I mean, look, they're 0-2. The coaching has been lackluster for 2 years straight. So I don't know if it's just that, but it's not working, whatever they're doing.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add to that. I'm just sad.
You're just disappointed.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. But I have faith. Right, I think he's a very talented wide receiver, and I stand by that. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. So cool. Let's talk a couple trades here. We have 4 trades to get through. I think the first one here is yours, Uriah. What you got?
Yes. So I think it's D1. I lost Dobbins, Chubb, Montgomery's hurt. Surprisingly, I still have like 3 decent running backs I could roll out there. But someone sent me offer, which is what you should do. Sent me the offer for Derrick Henry in a third for my Ayuk. I'm going to decline it. I don't think I need it. I can't do it. Henry's. I can't have him screw me over in another league by missing, week 16. I can't do it.
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk.
Just gonna roll with what I have.
Yeah. Ayuk managers can't be hasty here and overreact after and be, so short-sighted. That's what it is. You just can't be so short-sighted because we just saw Brandon Ayuk put together a 28-point outing a week ago. He comes out here, he gets slammed on his shoulder, he has a bad fantasy outing, and what we're gonna sell him now? No, like let's not do that. So no. I understand what they're trying to do here, but more often than not, these kind of deals, especially with quality players, I'm not gonna sell while they're injured. There's a reason that somebody's coming at you with the offer they're coming at you with. It's because it's an opportune time.
Yeah, it's a good offer for them. So.
Yes, it is. Okay, so we were talking about Puka Nacua a lot. I've had a manager come after my Puka share hard, like as hard as I've ever seen somebody come after a player. Just like I even said, I'm not going to sell him for anything less than a 24 first. It doesn't make sense. You and I are top 2 teams. Why? Like, I don't want to sell him to you anyway. It's like, whatever. Just keeps firing offers at me. I'm like, all right. But so they sent Jonathan Mingo and a 2025 first for Puka Nacua. What do you think?
You just got to roll with Puka, man. Like you just have to. You just have to part of this has got to be fun, right? I think 25 first and Mingo. I think that's a pretty good offer. There's no way you wouldn't have accepted this 3 weeks ago. Yeah. You would have been like, "Oh yeah, let me get off of Puka. This is sweet." But just go along with the ride, man. Keep on with Puka until you absolutely get an offer you just can't refuse. And this is an offer you can. Just roll with it, bud.
No, I mean that's exactly like you're like the little devil on my shoulder, being like, "No, dude, just ride with him, man. It's all good.
Just ride with it. Go for it. It's what we're here for. Let's do it."
And honestly, this team is stacked, like super loaded. I have 2 other receivers who I'm trying to get rid of in Marquise Brown and Mike Williams, who I can barely start at this point. So I have a lot of capital I can kind of play around with. I don't have to do this. And I think like Uriah said, like until somebody sends you something where you're like, I literally like, that's amazing, I'm going to accept that. Like, why do it? Again, it's a historic start. It's unlikely he's this outlier and he's going to just be an amazing player going forward. But man, it's historic. Nobody's ever done it. Like part of this, like Uriah said, is fun. It is playing those crazy odds, those upside odds, right? Like if you're playing scared all the time and you're always risk averse, like I like to be sometimes, you're not going to win. Like you got to take some shots. And when you take those shots, when you make those big moves, that's when you edge out your competition. So I think the other manager is trying to do that. The other manager is like, I see this, I'm going to send a first and stuff, and I'm going to go get Puka, and I'm going to get one of the better players I've seen in a while. So I think they have kind of a similar mindset. I'm not trying to be a dick. I feel bad because like I'm letting them sit there and thinking about it, and then I'm rejecting them. But you just got to do what you got to do. So I think I'm going to reject that one until I get a 24 first at the very least. I think then I can justify moving on from a player I really like to, get a really good player immediately next year. But other than that, I really don't know if I can do it. And even then, I think I want like somebody to come at me with a haul where I just cannot not accept it.
The return on investment is pretty good. Just throwing it out there. But
I got him off waivers in this league.
Yeah.
To get a first round pick for a guy you got off waivers for sure. But if also the return on the investment is this awesome player, but then again, that's definitely falling into a trap. I don't want people to think that he's going to be amazing forever. Like it's possible, but the thing I keep coming back to is like Matthew Stafford will not be there forever. And Matthew Stafford being a great quarterback is part of the reason why this kid's so good right now. He has a guy who knows what he's doing, right? And I don't know how long that will last. It'll definitely last this year, maybe next, but yeah, after that, it's going to depend all on Puka to be really, really good. And I don't know if it's all Puka. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, that first and Mingo is a good offer. If I could get a different receiver out of this class, maybe like a Jaden Reed or something like that on this, I might think about it a little bit more. I don't love Mingo, but I do think that this is a fair enough offer. So yeah.
Yeah, I think the Mingo thing is it's what's making me want you to ride. So
I agree. It's ruining it. Okay. We had a question in the Discord. Our boy Dre, 1 QB league, Calvin Ridley for Zay Flowers and a 2024 third. This is a really interesting one. Which side of this would you take?
Ridley.
Yeah, I think I'm there with you too. And
he's good. He's very good. He's balling out. Week 1 was a lot better than week 2, but Zay Flowers almost had 2 touchdowns last week, by the way. He was literally inches from 2 touchdown grabs. So I don't mind rostering them both, but for Dynasty and stuff moving forward, like I'm just going to keep Ridley.
Yeah, I don't mind that answer at all. I'd like this to be a second, and I would take the Zay Flowers side. For sure. Especially in 1 QB, those picks just fall off pretty hard. So I think I need it to be a second. But yeah, I'm with your eye on this one. Ridley, even in the bad outing, he had, I think, 8 targets. The guy is just going to be a target hog all year long. And more times than not, he's going to come through for you. And I think he's got his legs for a couple years, being out, whatever it was, like 200, 300 days.
Basically 2 seasons, yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is. I mean, that, adds some life to his legs. He doesn't have as much tread on the tire. So I like him for another, couple of years. I like Ridley. All right, last one here, another Discord trade offer. This was Dan, our boy Dan. Shout out. Drake London for Kyron Williams plus Tyjae Spears. There was a lot of talk about the running back side being kind of the value side here. I do think Dan was like, yeah, this would be a good buy low for Drake London. There was kind of some wishy-washiness in general, I feel like, from everybody in the Discord. I think you got to just go and take London and not look back. I know that's tough to do with how disappointing this Atlanta offense is. But we saw him come through, 6 target game or 7 target game, I think 6 catches, touchdown. He's a really good player. And I like Kyron Williams enough, but I don't like both of those players enough to bypass Drake London.
Yeah. I don't think I'm ready to get on Drake London just yet. I believe I watched a decent amount of that game, and quarterback's looking a little bit better. Ritter, and you just got Drake London is, absolute stud. Let's not get this wrong. Like, was in college. He's earning targets at a high rate. Has been since he got in the league. This is his 2nd year. I think you just got to wait. Like, I'm not ready to jump ship from a guy like that for 2 guys like Kyron Williams and Tyjae. Kyron Williams, we don't even know if he'll be playing for the Rams next year. Tyjae Spears, we don't know exactly what's going to happen with him. I like those guys to be on my roster for sure, but I'm not going to give up a Drake London for him.
Yeah, I can't do that. We didn't talk about Kyron Williams actually in the Cam Akers saga there, which is wild. He was a healthy scratch, and then Kyron Williams goes absolutely nuts. Very, very impressive. We don't know what's going to happen with Kyron Williams. Obviously, they don't have a ton invested in him, but he looked really good. I like Kyron Williams enough, but I'm not giving up blue chip top 10 NFL draft pick for guy like Uriah said, who potentially could just not be playing as a starter next year, and another guy who potentially is not going to be a starter next year and probably more likely than not. So yeah, give me the top 10 draft pick who is an absolute stud on a team that doesn't know how to use studs. Sorry, that sucks. But you got to ride with it.
Drake London will end up with the 2nd contract in the NFL. Kyron Williams, Tyjae Spears to be lucky to. So that's just something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that's all I got for the trade side of things. Week 2 is an absolute disaster again.
So
just
sad.
The injuries, just ridiculous. Yeah. Like the Nick Chubb one was, dude. Like I could hear. I don't know if I'm sure everybody. You could hear him screaming on the field from pain. That was disappointing. That was a tough one.
Yeah.
But Looking ahead for a
Messed
better
up.
week 3. Hopefully less injuries, right? That's all we can hope for.
You know, and he's like the last of like the really good pure running backs. So it just kind of
Yeah.
almost feels like an end of an era, but not quite. Maybe that's a little
Yeah.
dramatic, but man, it sucks.
Man, what a brutal ending to week 2 that was. But yeah, let's hope for better weeks ahead, less injuries, and good football. That's it.
So, anything else you want to talk about?
Oh man, no, I think we filled it up today. We definitely filled it up
Yes.
today. We'll have plenty to talk about next week. Some more Discord stuff. I had some stuff I was going to talk about here a little bit, but when the sheet thins out a little bit from injury news and all that, we'll jump on some other nonsense that we toss around. But yeah, let us know if you guys want to hear anything. Hop in the Discord, talk to us. Yada yada yada. Later.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Thanks for listening, guys. Give us a follow on Twitter or x.com, whichever you prefer. I'll probably always call it Twitter. At Dynasty Underdog, at Uriah Dawkins, at Billy Beeman DFF. Join our Discord. It's free. It's awesome. It's lit. And we have YouTube if you want to watch us there. And listen to us on Spotify if you can. It helps us out quite a bit. So other than that, you guys have a good night, and we'll see you next week.
Peace out.
Peace out.